Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wizard. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. All right, hello, Kaye, Adelaide, and Mariel Sharp. What was the first piece of inspiration that led to Monsterdyke?
That's a great question. Thank you. I think it was a project born out of the pandemic because we were in lockdown and there was very few things that we could do. So Kay and I took to taking really long bike rides in the evening, and we were just kind of brainstorming about like, what can we do that could just involve the two of us, maybe a couple of friends helping out in order to, stay safe and do something that we can totally keep control over with a small team of people. And so we started brainstorming, and then we were like, hey, we want to do something kind of erotic, kind of different, and we just started brainstorming, and then it really developed from there.
Yeah, and I mean, I was interested in doing something like I have an interest in acting, even though I'm primarily a writer director. I act here and there, and I was like, well, what better opportunity than now to like direct myself in something when we can't really get a room full of actors together in the deep lockdown times. So it's like, well, I'll star in it and we'll produce it together and we'll just do what we can. Like,
yeah.
Well, the result was a lot of fun. I definitely laughed and cringed and felt all a real roller coaster of emotions within a formative period.
Only a 4-minute film, but our goal was definitely to send viewers on a bit of a roller coaster.
I mean, a lot of movies you don't feel anything at all, so it's good to feel something, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I think you should always either love or hate the art. The only failure is if you're indifferent to it. Like,
yeah, it was the opposite of love is and hate. It's like lukewarm.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me about co-directing. Which one of you did what?
Oh, again, great question. So this project was really, really heavy on pre-production because it took a long time for us to make Annie. Annie is what we call the monster in the film. And Kay has a special effects background. So
I kind of led the team in building the monster. It was me and Mariel and Stephanie Burbano, the art director and puppeteer, primarily building it. But I kind of designed her and sort of led the task of building. So I was the only one who had special effects experience prior to this. And I mean, that was a huge part. You could say that casting was the biggest part because we had to cast that character, and literally casting her out of latex and foam is the name of the process. So, but
so Kay was the lead on that, and then she was also acting. So I was more of like the on-set director watching the frame and directing her action, but we had also just decided everything in advance. Like,
we made a shot list together in advance and like decided the aesthetic in advance and did like a practice session because it's also shot on 16 millimeters. So our cinematographer had never shot analog before. She's great in digital, but this was her first time on analog, which she was great on too, but she didn't know that yet. So we had to sort of have a little like training session to show her the ropes with the 16 millimeter Bolex camera. And
yeah.
Oh, the Bolex, the one where you roll it the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Very old school.
We're both Concordia film program graduates, and so in our first year we both had to make Bolex films. But our friend who was a cinematographer was also in the program, but she did it a little later once they had gotten rid of all the Bolexes.
Cool. Okay, so tell me about sort of influences behind the design for the monster, as well as the movements it makes.
Yeah,
I think Kay's definitely got some good ideas.
Let's see. I mean, I think we wanted to give her a bit of a 1920s glam style. I mean, we're back into the 20s, so may as well revive it. And so we sort of had this fun idea of like, we didn't want to give her hair because we wanted it to be sort of more reptilian alien. So we sort of gave her a texture on her head that sort of maybe replicates an old style kind of slick, flappery haircut. And definitely wanted to go on the reptilian or cephalopod style with all the tentacles, but wanted to keep enough of the human figure that there's some sex appeal still.
Or like she's got to be hot.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, definitely mermaid inspired as well with the big tail.
Okay, cool. And what about some of the moves it makes? Were there any conversations behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that was dictated by limitations of doing it all practical in camera. So a lot of the movements have sort of an eerie, surreal feel to them because they are reverse gags, which is to say we put the tentacle into its final position and then pull it away and then play the footage in reverse, and it appears to like lift up on its own and wrap around something or the such. Or there's also sort of a floating kind of quality to the tentacles at times, which helps to give the sense of it sort of being this underwater creature, but it's also as a result that its tentacles hanging from fishing wires have sort of this dangling, floating effect. And I think it works because you think of tentacles usually as underwater and they have sort of a float to them in the way they look like.
Yeah, it was definitely a question we were thinking of at the beginning, because I think pre-pandemic, one other route we could have gone with Annie is doing more of a makeup, like having an actor inside kind of a suit, which would have been a good option considering how the character and the monster is like as big as a person. But it was one of the things we actually designed with COVID in mind, because we were like, well, we're not going to have any physical contact in this like sex movie. So the best option is to actually make a puppet to be able to shoot safely in COVID. And I think I'm really glad that we actually did that, because I think it really it's a very interesting choice. And I think that the monster is a very interesting blend of like animate and inanimate.
Well, and the fact that it's supposed to be a sculpture come to life, it makes sense that it's not like fully animate and clearly like a person in a suit, because it's not exactly supposed to be a living creature. It's kind of a golem. It's kind of something made from another substance brought to life.
Okay, so the movie is playing before the Fantasia film Giving Birth to a Butterfly, but if you could program it with an old movie, what would it be?
An old movie?
Yeah.
That's a good question. The first thing that pops into my head, and it's not an old movie, it's only maybe 5 years old, is the movie The Lure, which is
right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Movie, but an old movie, I'm sure there's something that would come to mind.
Something John Carpenter.
Yeah, I could see that. Something slimy, like probably an 80s horror movie that's got a lot of good slime to it. Maybe a Cronenberg film could also fit. Or if you want to go with Cronenberg and the unbridled lust, you could go with Crash. Even though it's a lot darker, it's interesting that it's this sort of taboo sexuality throughout the entire thing.
Well, with the monster, I definitely the two like kind of obvious things that come into my mind are Shape of Water. I'm sure you've heard that before, and then Creature from the Black Lagoon. But maybe like more of like a deep cut with like the moves, like how it makes, like the moves it makes, and like sort of like an underpinning feel. Is I got sort of a Tetsuo the Iron Man vibe.
Nice. Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah, and that's also, I think, shot on like black and white 16. So I think
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like a drill penis and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean that's right in our wheelhouse. So.
Okay, so who do you think are the sexiest filmmakers?
That's a good question.
I mean, I would say Crash is up there of a sexy movie.
Yeah, I mean, and in a weird way, Cronenberg is like, even though it's gross, it's like tied to sexuality in some way. All the slime, all the bodily exploration, there's something very sensual about it. But who else? There's got to be some others. Gosh.
Again, The Lure comes to mind. The film is very erotic and queer.
Yeah, it's one of, I think the sex scene in that between the mermaid and the lady cop is like one of the hottest scenes that's ever existed in. But maybe I'm biased towards sex with monsters. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll let the audience decide.
Do you guys like Russ Meyer?
Oh, I don't know a lot of Russ Meyer.
Yeah.
I know of him, but I'm trying to place what I've seen and I'm not sure.
Like Fast and Pussycat Kill.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some
there's
aesthetic
something about
inspiration.
the Grindhouse kind of
sexploitation or whatever. Yeah, it's not like hardcore, but it's like, kind of cute and rough.
Yeah, I think we had a few references from that film when we were building out the aesthetic of this one. So yeah, that's a good reference for sure.
Mm-hmm.
My first ever interview was the widow of this guy named Andy Sedaris. I don't know if you know him. He did these sexy movies with they're like sort of filled with like bodacious babes and tubular dudes, and they're like sort of TNA action movies. They're a lot of fun, like Hard Ticket to Hawaii and a Savage Beach or whatever. And he's got a great line. He says, "Yeah, my movies have naked women and explosions, and if you don't like it, you're a communist."
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're maybe the opposite. It's like our movies has boobs and monster fuck. If you like it, you are a communist.
Nice. Okay, you're the anti-Sedaris.
Yeah, I guess so.
Perfect. So, have either of you made it to Fantasia in the past?
Yeah, we premiered a different short last year at Fantasia called "Don't Text Back," which we also co-wrote, co-directed, but this one actually had a cast of more than one human involved, because that was before times.
Yeah, we had such a great experience with that short. We premiered at Fantasia, I think, and then we had a really great festival run after and a lot of exposure. So it was really great. Like Fantasia definitely is such a great festival for these type of films, and people get really excited, and you really get a response, which is amazing. So when we finished on Monsterdyke, we were like, that would be great. Let's just do that again because it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Okay, and sort of like another blank, vapid question, but like it's going to come up, obviously, is why did you shoot this on 60 millimeter?
I mean, great question. I don't fully know.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I remember, an easy answer is because I own a Bolex and had a bunch of film stock in the freezer.
Okay.
And we're like, well, it's an aesthetic choice, and then we don't have to rent like a high-end camera to use, because we are on quite a budget. So that's one reason for sure. But I think there also was an aesthetic choice, and just, I think a lot of it had to do with restrictions, because as I say, since we both did the film program, and in first year you have to make a couple Bolex films, we were kind of thinking about going back to basics, because that's, in that time, we weren't working with crews of 15, 20 people like we are now. It was 2 or 3 friends trying to work it out together. So that was like what we knew was the scale we had. So we figured, well, what if we go back to that level of filmmaking? And also the Bolexes that are wind up, you can't do sync sound. So that simplifies things too. You don't have to have a sound person on set. So it's like, we can shoot an MOS film and dub in all the sound after, and it suits the aesthetic of something grindhousey to have this like dubbed in sound track also. So it somehow felt a natural fit, but it's like, it felt so natural, but to explain why it was natural is a whole other question.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, I think also like I produce a lot, and I've done films at, every like budget level and scale. And I think I'm always looking at kind of what's the lowest risk and these kind of things, and asking all these producing questions. And, film wouldn't be my first choice for a lot of projects. But when we were planning this one, it was really absolutely like a passion project where we just like, let's just do something, and like
full creative freedom, not relying on grants or.
Yeah, like there's no other producer that we have to deliver this to. Like it's going to really be a learning experience, and like we're just going to kind of be creative, and like we're not going to really care about who's the target audience. We're not going to care about what happens if there's a mistake with a camera. Like we're just going to do it and then see what happens. And in the end, it was perfect. Like it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were some of the great memories of the shoots?
Oh my God, I have a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, for one thing, the scale of the shoot was kind of hilarious, because I don't know, we somehow came up with the idea that our shooting schedule was going to run from like 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. And instead it ran until 6 a.m. somehow. Like we just were working through the night, and was completely unexpected. And we were all so like drunk on tiredness at the end.
But having fun.
But still having fun.
And
Yeah.
it was the two of us plus Stephanie Banu, who built the monster with us and puppeteered.
And also was the art production designer, like did all the art direction in the studio.
And Naomi Silver Vizina was the cinematographer and gaffer and grip.
Yeah.
And so it was the four of us, and it was just kind of staying up all night in our studio with like the wind howling outside. And
because it was in December that we shot, this past December we shot it. We were aiming to shoot in like September, but the monster took like an extra 3 months longer to finish building than we expected. So
yeah, I'd say, I mean, I guess one of my favorite moments from shooting was probably when we were making the boob squirt out lube.
Mm-hmm.
That was really fun. You and Steph were back behind the monster with like tubes that connected through the puppet.
We each had like a giant syringe that when it was time to go, we were going to start hammering down on to try to make it squirt as far as possible.
And Naomi, the cinematographer, was getting a low angle shot, so she was lying on the floor covered in garbage bags to protect her.
She was in the splash zone 100%.
And that was really great. We were laughing a lot. It was great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, I appreciate that you guys like enjoy life. I can tell that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was our goal, was to have sort of a fun, creative, life-affirming experience in the middle of feeling really like stifled and isolated. And it was a big help in getting us through one of the roughest patches of the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for your attitude. I had fun watching the show and talking to you guys now. Thanks for your time. Could you guys share any plans for your future endeavors with me before you go?
Yeah, sure. So I've been developing a feature called Trans Vengeance that is currently in late stage development. It's about a transgender woman who's brought to the brink of death and declared legally dead, but she secretly comes back and seeks to reap vengeance on everybody who wronged her and led to her downfall. And each of the people that she has on her kill list actually relates to sort of an aspect of society at large that holds trans people back. So it's a horror comedy. It's very fun and gory, but it's also got a social message behind it. And so that's, I'm currently securing funding for and working at getting into production. And it's just ran through frontiers with that, as I said. And Mariel also has a project of her own.
Yes, I'm shooting another short that I'm writing and directing called Where the Witch Lives in 2 weeks. And I was able to get some funding through SODEC to make the production happen. I'm super excited. It's essentially a gothic horror film about, I'll just say, a very dysfunctional family.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll stay tuned for all those things. And thanks so much for your time, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Mm-hmm.
It's been great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Thanks.